Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 191, and this may be the last Artcasters as you know it, meaning that Google Hangouts is going away, and we are trying to find a replacement. We think we may have something, but it's kind of like down to the wire, because I think by the time we go live next week, according to Google, I think it will be either gone or wait, what? Let me check the calendar here. I definitely don't want to get too close down to the wire, but yeah, so the first, when it goes away, will be Thursday. So that this is going to be the last one through Hangouts. So hopefully we will continue to do this. So it's going to be a little different, but we're working on it. So,
Yeah, hopefully we have audio. Like next week, if you're in the chats and you can't hear anything, please let us know as soon as possible, because we're going to be trying something else. So
yeah. And if for some reason, we're not going away, but if for some reason we can't get it set up by next week, there may be a little break, but we are trying to get it all set up. So just kind of know that. Yeah. Ronnie says sad times. Yeah, I know so many people that use it and love it, and but yeah, I guess it's going away, so they're going to take it away from us. So, but we'll see. Okay, let's see. So we're going to get started. We've got Dan Ekis coming back, and we will get to him in a minute. But first, I just want to. I guess you're on my channel, so you know who I am, where I am, and everything. So I'm going to kick it over to Josh. Josh, what's going on? What are you up to?
I think, did you just transition to me because it kind of froze for a second?
Yeah.
So you can check out my stuff at quarterlystories.com, where you can read my story about faith and mental illness. And you can also just check out my illustration stuff at joshuakemble.com. And if you're on an Android or iOS device and you want to read some cool free autobio comics, go to topis.io and search for Quarterly Stories, and you can read it very comfortably on your Android or iOS device. So that's pretty much where you can find my stuff and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Cool. And so I did forget to mention, like always, I got the Comic Maker Starter Kit going on, and I'm getting closer to having the Comic Toolkit Pro. I think that's what I'm going to call it, Comic Maker Toolkit, which is going to be even bigger, and there will be a price tag attached to that, but it's not something crazy, but I think it'll be well worth it. So that's coming soon. I'm working on it.
What's the price tag of just this?
The Comic Maker Starter Kit? That one is the low price of totally free.
Oh, wow, that's insane.
And you can get that at Serkworks.com. And we've got on the show returning guest, Dan Ekis, and he's got something to promote. What's going on, Dan? What do you got going on?
I somehow managed to weasel my way back in for the Artcasters 3-peat. So
yeah,
thanks for having me back on.
Are you a three-timer?
Yeah, I don't know what I did to deserve it, but thanks for having me back, guys.
We gotta get those three-timer club buttons going on.
A good call.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to catching up. I'm working on a new comic book called Letters from the Mother Tree. It's a science fiction series written by Levi Noe, and we are kickstarting it right now.
And there is a link in the description to both Dan's channel and to his Kickstarter that's going on, so definitely check that out. And so Dan kind of came up with the topic for tonight, so I might kind of kick it over to him to start off. I think I know where he's going with this, and I think I've got some stuff I can weigh in on, but so the topic is how not to lose followers. And so what got you in that kind of mindset? What got you thinking about how not to lose followers? Did you suddenly lose a bunch of followers or something?
I have over the years. Some people are going to naturally drop off, but no, basically there are things that I see a lot of artists doing, and I don't think they're really conscious of it, but it's causing people to not want to follow or support them. And I'm like, if you would just not do that, people would stick around. So there's a lot of things that I see people doing. It's just stop doing that. And it drives me nuts. And nobody really talks about these things. So I'd love to share some of the things that I've learned and seen, and hopefully get your guys' take. And I'm sure you guys have some stories as well, that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, what's first on your list?
Okay, the first one I have is you don't truly value people. This is something that, like, I've seen with people at conventions or with people online. They kind of look at people as like a means to an end, as like, oh, this person's like a potential follower or backer of my Kickstarter or someone who could buy from me, and they don't really look at them as like a human being. And I can just say from like meeting certain creators and talking to them, they didn't really come across as like caring a whole lot about people. And there's even been people who I'm like, oh, like I'm a fan of their work, and then you meet them, and I've had those don't meet your heroes kind of moments where,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I've had a few of those where it's just like nothing super negative, but it was just like, oh, they don't care about me at all.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, as much as as much as you try to, be personal and personable, and but it's so weird because you can. And I've been in situations where I might just have an off day or whatever, and then I interact with somebody, and I'm like, man, I hope that didn't come off as like I wasn't interested, or that I was, or it's just like I just, you walk away, and then I start feeling guilty, like, oh man, hopefully. But sometimes it's just your mind kind of playing tricks on you and stuff like that, or making you think something that's really not the case. But I always, I mean, anytime, especially when I'm meeting people in person, I try to, and especially when people come up to me and it's like they recognize me either from YouTube or whatever. And it's not like out on the street, no one's ever done that. But when you're in a setting like a comic convention where people are, may have seen stuff that you've done, it's just, I try to be, as as personal as I can and everything. So, but there's always times where like either you're having a bad day or whatever. It's just like you hope that doesn't come across. But at least I think if you're cognizant of that, you're trying to put your best foot forward. I think that's kind of the key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what you're describing, Scott, is kind of what's lacking, and there's occasional creators where that's just completely lacking. It's empathy, which is just I think most people who are kind of socially concerned for other people usually do have a very brief moment after like a social gathering of like, oh man, I said that one thing to that one person. I hope that came across right. You have like a lot of thoughts like that because you're thinking about it. And I think that's kind of important to be doing, to be thinking about other people. And that goes to just any professional art setting, I think, on the planet. I mean, if you're working somewhere and you're treating the janitor different than the CEO, you're going to have trouble at some point, especially as you move up, because like, people are valuable. Every person at a company is valuable. Basically every fan you have is super valuable. So yeah, conveying that value to those people, I would say, there might be that rare exception that's just such a genius. They can afford to be really difficult to work with or like unempathetic and uncaring. But 9 times out of 10, the times I've met, most of my heroes that I've met have actually been pretty humble. And when I've met somebody I kind of like the work of and they're kind of cocky and rude, a lot of the time it's weird because I'll be like, but like I've met Chris Ware and he was nice, and who's this? Like, I guess my point is like there are a lot of people higher than all three of us in the industry that behave better to their fans. So like they kind of set the bar for like those of us who aren't like racking up Eisners and filling our laurels and stuff. If they're being personable, I think the onus is on us to follow suit and like try to kind of make that a thing in the industry. But I agree with Scott in the sense of like I have totally had off days where I've met somebody and afterwards really questioned like, did I come across wrong? I've definitely had moments like that. So Yeah.
Yeah, I know Dan dropped out, so I don't know how much of that he caught. Are you back, Dan? Can you hear us, Dan?
Oh no, you may not have audio.
Yeah, he might have to jump out and jump back in. He's texting. I don't know where he's texting to. Hold on. Technical difficulties. Let's see.
Oh, okay. My headphones are down.
Okay. All right.
So I'll regale you with like a silly story of a time where I feel like I was playing a show with my band, and we had been invited. It was like a retirement party for one of my band members' coworkers, and we hadn't really done the math. We were just like, yeah, we'll do a favor for your friend. And when we showed up, it was like all people who were like, I mean, a lot of them were like 90 or 80. And I mean, if you surveyed the audience, like we had legitimate concerns that if we played our set, like we might actually kill someone by accident, because like might just have like a heart attack or something. And so we decided, okay, we'll start off by just saying like, hey, you know, we're not really a band that plays a lot of like soft music, so just bear with us and we'll try to get through our set as quick as possible, you know? And instead I started it off by saying, yeah, we don't really play a lot of oldies. And then right when I said that, I realized it sounded like I was saying everyone sitting there was old and that's why they wouldn't like us. And that was completely rude the way it came out. Whereas like the intention was just to be like, look, we know we're going to kind of suck. So just thank you for like kind of hanging around. But it just came out the wrong way. And I remember right after saying it, just being like, oh, wow, you can't walk that back. Like, that just sounds terrible, you know?
Yeah, no, I've had situations like that before.
Yeah. So I always give other creators the benefit of the doubt too. Like if I meet somebody and they're kind of a jerk, I usually try to like give them a second or third chance, because you never know. Maybe you just walked up right after they had like a really creepy stalker experience or something. You know, you never know what kind of happened before you got to that table, or like, I don't know how much sleep that person's gotten, or, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, because I remember there was an artist that it was way back in the 90s. I went to San Diego Comic-Con, and I just, you know, of course, go there. I got my portfolio, and I'm all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going in there, not knowing, you know, really anything. And then there was an artist there who I was like, he was kind of just sitting there. It looked like he just finished his lunch or something. He was just kind of sitting, which was weird because at this time, he was an image artist, and at this time, it was kind of right before. I mean, Image had hit. It was big, but it was still like there wasn't like a huge line. And I kind of asked him if he could look at my portfolio, and he was kind of like, you know, I'm not looking at portfolios right now. And to me, ever since and I've heard other people have had reactions with this artist that maybe wasn't the best, but that was kind of, for me to get upset about that was like, and I was young, but yeah, you know, you don't, I mean, it wasn't his, you know, it's not his responsibility or whatever to look at some kid that comes up with his portfolio. Now,
can you guys hear me okay? I'm back.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
But if it was me, you know, I try to do that. If anyone comes up to me, you know, and wants to show me their stuff, you know, I try to do that. But that's, you know, but if somebody doesn't want to do that, it's just like with me with commissions. Like somebody might come up to me and ask if I do a commission, and I might say, no, I don't really do commissions. And depending where I am, like if I'm at a comic book signing store or something, you know, then I might do commissions. But it just, that, you know, just because I'd rather kind of interact with people if I'm at a bigger con, I don't really do commissions. And somebody may, you know, be like, well, gee, you know, I wanted to commission him and he doesn't want to do it, you know. So you never know, you know. But some of that, like I said, you kind of learn with age. So
it's interesting though that you mentioned Image and that era, because I around that era when I was relatively young, I do remember meeting one of the kind of old school Image guys, and and walking away like shattered. I mean, because I was a kid, you know.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So I guess we can name names. I'm just wondering if it's the same person.
I really hate naming names.
Okay, then don't worry about it. It's because, like I said, I mean, for me, it was. I mean, and I'm not bashing. Like I said, I'm not bashing the guy. It was just my experience. So it was Eric Larson, but.
Okay. Well, mine was different.
Okay. All right.
But I've heard good things about Larson, so it's hard to know. You know?
Yeah, and I've heard the same thing with certain people. Like I've heard things about Art Adams, and I went up to Art Adams, and he was cool. Like one time, I went up to him, and like I'm just like looking through his stuff, and I had bought like this. I had a friend that was selling these bootleg kind of figures that he makes himself.
Yeah.
Like, just like he kind of would take old Star Wars figures and change the molds around a little and make his own characters out of them and box them. And he seemed generally interested in he's like, what is that? And then like, so, you know, so you never know. Like I said, it could be just a bad day. Some people have different interactions with people. So, but anyway, it sounds like Dan's back.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Dan?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right. That's all right.
Right in the middle of our conversation about being respectful to people, I just dropped you guys.
Well, but that's totally, you know, technology is another thing that you can't really blame people for. But you are we're having a little trouble hearing you. So I don't know if you can get closer in the mic or just speak louder.
Is that better?
That's way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Are we telling horror stories then?
No, we were just kind of trying to go off of what you originally said about, you know, kind of how to kind of behave with kind of fans and stuff, and so how sometimes even as fans we maybe get the wrong impression, or somebody maybe just having a bad day. And the other thing, and just as an aside, the whole thing about fans, and I was thinking about this other day, so I just kind of want to bring it up, but like I always try not to use the word fans.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel weird about it. But then I started to think, you know, I think that's more the problem with the person who has the quote fans and not the quote fans themselves, because as a fan of things, I don't consider that you know, when I say I'm a Star Wars fan, to me there's no negative to me saying I'm a Star Wars fan, or if I'm a fan of this particular artist. So it's almost like a one-sided thing, even though I'm kind of like, I don't like to refer to like people in the community, people that follow me or whatever, as fans. I don't think they have at least I don't, as fans of other people, I don't have that same weird feeling about that word. To me, the word's fine if I'm a fan of something. So
yeah,
a weird thing, but I just thought I'd bring that up.
Well,
so that's what we were kind of talking about. So
yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you were just saying. Like, there's this thing with
speak up a little or get a little close. Sorry.
Is this better?
Yeah, it's a little better.
Okay, yeah. Uncomfortably close to my phone right now. So people who follow you are going to be hypersensitive to everything you say and do. It's important to realize that. So if you say something that's like neutral, it could potentially be misunderstood as negative. But on the flip side, if you say something that's really positive, it's going to mean the world to someone who follows you, to a fan, if you want to use that word. Actually, if you guys don't mind, I have a couple quick examples of like the do's and don'ts in this area.
Awesome.
So like one, I've had many, you know, encounters with creators who were sort of disrespectful. One was, I'm not going to name her name, and nothing against this person at all. I got over it instantly. But there was a girl I wanted to have on my podcast, and this was when we were doing the Kid Millionaire Clubhouse, where we would hire artists to like come do workshops for us. And so I thought, oh, she'd be good for like a workshop. I'd like to hire her, but I'm going to do a podcast with her first, make sure she's cool. And what happened was I invited her to come on my podcast. She got sick and had to bail at the last minute. I was like, oh, no worries. So we rescheduled for like a week later. A week later, she just doesn't show up. I wait for like 30 minutes. I'm like, hey, I'm going to take off. Let me know if you want to reschedule. Something must have happened. No worries. Things happen. You know, I've missed meetings before too. So when she's like, oh, so sorry, I completely forgot about this. And then she, so we rescheduled again, and then she just blew me off again. And I was like, okay, like, she really does. And I realize I'm not like Joe Rogan. Like, it's not like I have a huge platform or anything.
Yeah.
But like, send me an email, let me know, so I'm not sitting here for 30 minutes, girl. Come on, like.
Yeah.
So that was like, I've had a couple instances like that with these sort of bigger artists. Like, she had a huge following on a couple different platforms, and I've had a couple artists like that who it's like they have such a big following, but that doesn't mean, like, if you're gonna commit to something, commit to it. I don't care if someone has like 20 listeners on their podcast, they invite you to come on and you commit to do it, you better show up, or tell them you can't do it. Like, because from this day on, like, that girl not only lost a podcast opportunity, which she obviously doesn't need, she has a huge following, but she lost money. I was gonna hire her, I was gonna pay her like $100, $200 maybe to do a workshop for us, and she lost that because just, you know, and if she would have explained like, hey, my cat died in a horrible fire, I would have been like, hey, God, that's awful, no worries, you know. So that's just one example. Like, just treat people with respect, because I unfollowed that girl. I just, like, I see her interact with people in the comments section on like Instagram and stuff, and she's like acts real humble and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a dissonance, and I'm not a hater at all, man. Like, again, no hard feelings to you if you're listening. I don't hate you at all. I love you. I love everybody. But you know, she lost a follower. She lost me. So
yeah, it's weird because you wonder how people can grow those audiences and kind of act like that or behave like that. And sometimes sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes people are just flaky. But in this business, I mean, and it is, you know, I'm going to say it is a business, but it doesn't have to be a business if you just do it for fun. But still, even if you're doing that, you have to respect other people's time. And if they're doing that as a business or whatever.
Right.
But were you going to say something, Josh? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so the thing that comes to mind is like, there've been a couple times where like, I've been, you know, talking to somebody at a convention, and then I get an email like 4 months later, and they're the art director of some giant company with a ton of money for me. Or I'm nice to a certain person, and then I find out they're like a huge senior editor in the comics industry. And I didn't know that when I was talking to them, and I'm glad I didn't, because when I was talking to them, I just had a genuine conversation. But imagine had I been like a dick to any of those people, like, not only would I have turned off, like, let's say a potential fan, but you've just basically projected that you're not somebody to work with, and that you're kind of cocky, or like, you know, like one thing that's really reviled in the industry is prima donnas, like people who are like too big. They have like an Icarus complex, and that's usually viewed as like really bad to have around, because professionally it's really unreliable, and also just difficult to work with. So it's like, you know, that shouldn't be the motivating factor. The motivating factor should just be like, hey, be nice to people who, you know, are like showing up, you know.
Right.
They're giving you some kind of asset, like they're giving you their time, you know. But like, but it is to me interesting. I guess I'll throw in one more example. I have another friend who, when we graduated, was like running late to a job interview, and he kind of like cut off this car, and then he gets to the interview, and like while he's waiting in the lobby, he notices this guy pull up in the car he cut off, and that was the art director of that business. And it was an animation, and so the guy was so pissed, he was basically like, not only am I not going to hire you, I'm going to tell everyone I know in this industry what your conduct is like. And that guy had trouble getting work for like 2 years for being a jerk on the freeway. So, you know, like, keep in mind, like, when you're not on a freeway at a convention or online with you know, potential fans, you're at the interview, you know. Like, there's people who are like, they want to spend money on art. They want to interact with creators. They're already there. So this isn't like a hypothetical. So yeah, definitely be nice, you know. Doesn't mean you have to be squeaky clean and like, you know, not cater to an audience, but it's just, yeah, don't be a jerk, you know.
Let's be real, dude. Like we're nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, and you're gonna like step on some toes, make some people mad. There's just a kid on Facebook the other day. This kid tagged me in like 15 like posts. He just kept tagging me in these posts, and it kind of came across as sort of like spammy. I'm just like, I don't really know this person. I'm just gonna unfriend them. And then he like commented on like some video that I saw, like, Dan unfriended me on Facebook. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Like, you were being spammy. Like, you can send me another friend request. Just don't tag me every 5 minutes. So it's like, I can't make everybody happy. I'm not a perfect person. But, yeah, like, with regard to, like, just treating people with respect, there have been artists who I've had on my podcast who are great examples of how to act. So, like, Jake Parker, the Inktober guy, I interviewed him a while ago. He like missed the first podcast meeting that we did because he like forgot to look at his calendar or something, and he was like genuinely sorry. Like I could like feel that he felt bad through his email. He's like, "I'm so sorry, man," and we rescheduled a time to do it. So like if you miss a meeting or something, it's like just you're not perfect. That's okay. Just tell people, hey, something came up. I'm really, really sorry. And also with regard to what I was saying earlier about how if someone's a fan of you, everything you say and do has more weight. So if it's negative or neutral, it could potentially come across as very negative. If you do something or say something positive, it's going to be very, very meaningful in a good way to that person. So for instance, Will Terry, who's another illustrator I interviewed for my podcast, and I'll be a fan of Will Terry for life. Like he was already someone I looked up to because I followed him on YouTube. And then I interview this guy, doing a podcast with him, and he hangs out with me for like an hour and a half. Like, this is a dude who has a huge platform. He doesn't need me for anything. Like, there's like 100 people tuning into my podcast at the time. This is a guy who has a family, a job. He has, he's running like multiple businesses, extremely busy artist, very busy guy. He was so patient, just like in his mannerisms, just the way he like talked to me. And he was like, yeah, so what about you, Dan? What type of work do you do? Where did you go to school?
Yeah.
Like, he treated me like a peer, like an equal. And I will never forget how that felt, dude. It was just like, wow, like Will Terry actually cares about people. I'll never forget how that felt, man. And when you can do that to other people and just treat them like that, they're going to stick around forever, dude, because it really means a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
Mic drop. Boom.
No, yeah, I mean, I and this is more not so much in the comic space, but the design space. But if you guys want to check out some really great tips on, just social media or whatever, even like go on Instagram and look for The Honest Entrepreneur. It's Tom Ross, who runs a company called Design Cuts, who I sell some of my digital products through. And they're a big company, and they reached out to me. He discovered one of my products, and they featured me in a bundle and everything. And after that, he just like, this guy gives so much. And I mean, he's got like a, $1 million business going on, and he took the time to like, review my website and help me out and give me pointers. And he does this stuff with his community. He's kind of starting his own brand, his own personal brand on the side. But, and right now is the good time. If you need any tips or anything like that, just kind of reach out to him, because he's kind of given this really valuable advice for basically nothing. And I mean, if you want to know how to act, I mean, he's like the perfect example. So if you look for, like I said, just go Honest Entrepreneur on Instagram. And Tom's great. And I got to meet him in person at like Creative South and everything. But yeah, one of these guys that, he's in a position where he doesn't need to do all this stuff, but he just understands the value of it. And part of that is like when you are trying to build an audience, like you were talking about with Will Terry, I mean, I am a fan of Tom's for life because he just basically, he's out there kind of trying to help people out and asking basically nothing in return. But those are the people that are going to be following him. Like maybe right now he doesn't have anything for sale right now, but down in the future he might. And I'll probably be one of the first people to sign up just because of all the value that he's given me for free. And that's a way to kind of build a community and a following in the beginning, is just be there for people. And I still try, and I don't, based on the amount of subscribers I get, I don't think I get, I don't get a whole lot of like comments and things. But I still try to answer everyone that I can, unless somebody that's just, just being a jerk and just tearing me down. And even then, sometimes I try to, answer without trying to get in any kind of a altercation. Like somebody said something about, somebody left the comment today or something like, talk about rambling. And I was just like, yeah, guilty as charged. I mean, that's my thing. I said, it's not for everyone, but I'll ramble sometimes. If you don't like that, then it's not for you, and that's fine. But I would never leave a comment like that. I would never leave a comment like that on somebody's video. That's just not. I mean, if there's people that maybe I thought rambled more, and it wasn't interesting to me, but I'm not going to leave a comment saying that. It just, I don't get the internet sometimes.
No, that's a good point, man. It's like sorry.
You're
Josh was saying about that guy who cut the art director off.
Mm-hmm.
You are like your brand all the time. You know what I mean? Like you have to be authentic, and like in your day-to-day life, the way you act is going to spill over into your career. With social media, I was actually listening to a speaker not too long ago at this event, and he said, act like you're on camera all the time, because you are. Yeah. Like anybody could pull out a phone at any second and film you. You know what I mean? So it's the way I behave when I'm like, if I go out to a bar and I'm acting silly and crazy, I look like an idiot, but like that's who I am, and I'm not going to be embarrassed about twerking on girls on the dance floor or whatever I'm doing, like acting crazy with my friends. I'm not doing anything that I'm going to be like super embarrassed about, or that's not, in alignment with who I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how I managed to work twerking into our conversation.
That's an Artcasters first, I think.
Yeah, it's and there's also, you're not gonna be able to like respond to everyone's comments at a certain point. You're not gonna be able to reply to everyone's email. Like where I'm at with my audience and the size of it, I can, which I like. But I do know there are artists who they just get so many messages. There's no way to respond to everyone, and like someone's feelings might get hurt if you don't email them back, but that's a risk you're gonna have to take, I mean, that's part of the game. And I would say, like, if with regard to like saying no to opportunities, because you won't be able to take every opportunity, there's going to be so many things thrown at you. The more you put yourself out there, and either commit or don't. Like I've had artists who are just like, no, I don't have time to come on your podcast, sorry. And like I respect that a lot, because I'd rather have that than you tell me you're gonna talk with me at Friday at 5 p.m. and then I'm sitting there for a half hour and you just ghost me.
Yeah.
So just a couple random things I had on my head right there.
Yeah. So and it's weird because like even like in the comments and stuff, it's like some people, whether depending, like sometimes people don't even, I guess they don't even expect you to respond. So they sometimes they'll talk to you like you're not paying attention to the comments, or it's like, oh, I love how this guy does this, or it was funny when he did that, meaning instead of you did that, like I'm here. I'll answer your questions. You can talk to me, one-on-one here. I mean, through the internet, but it's not like you don't have to talk to me like I'm not paying attention. Like you're talking to the whole crowd. I don't know. Maybe but I understand like if I'm, and sometimes I don't even, like on bigger channels, a lot of times I don't even bother to comment because I like that interaction. And if I know they're so big that the chance of them not even responding, I usually don't interact. That maybe is not the best thing because you're also there for the community and not necessarily in these bigger channels to kind of interact with the community too, which I could do probably more of as well. But yeah, it's just a whole different thing, the way, different people respond, and and also as somebody, if you're, like you had mentioned before, like the guy that you said was kind of felt like he was kind of spamming and stuff, and not only as creators or whatever, but the people that are kind of following you and kind of commenting on your stuff and everything like that. I lost my train of thought.
To the guy who was spamming, if you're listening, I love
oh yeah, that's right.
Send me a friend request.
No, yeah, but that's the thing. When you're approaching people, it's like, just like introduce yourself, or kind of, like sometimes people. The weird thing is, like, I don't like people follow. Like, I'm not totally on Instagram all the time, and people will. They'll follow me and stuff like that. And I don't follow a lot of people back, but if somebody just reached out to me and kind of introduced themselves and something like that, then I would check out their stuff. But you got to you have to give something in order to kind of expect to get something in return in some ways, show that you're a real person, and show that, and instead of just like, and especially don't go like, follow for follow, that type of stuff like that. Just, talk to people, and, maybe they're too busy to get back. Maybe they're not, you never know, but you kind of have to just,
Yeah. And something to kind of keep in mind, cause I think this could be misconstrued as like, well, I sent an email to like, this giant rock star artist and they never responded. What a jerk. That could be like the misinterpretation of what we're saying. And I think it is good to like prioritize your fans and stuff like that, but you have to realize too, like, people have lives.
Yeah.
And so like, you never know what's going on when you're sending somebody an email, and you never know how full their inbox is. Like, they might get back to you a half a year from now because they have like a billion emails.
Yeah.
And so there's that too, to kind of keep in mind too, like when you're approaching people. But like, I think that idea of being filmed or whatever, that's not a bad concept. One thing I noticed with younger artists, and I'll throw myself in this category. Like, I remember the first time I went to a comic convention, I was boothing with some guys who'd done comics for quite a while, and I was sort of crap talking some comics I didn't like because I didn't. In my head, the industry was a lot bigger than it was, and so I just thought, like, it's like if you go to a movie you don't like, you just, that kind of thing. What I didn't realize until, I like kindly got kind of this explained to me by like my booth mate, was like, this guy, like the guy I was boothing with, was like really close friends with the creators of like two of the comics. I was just like, this thing's a piece of crap, and he was like, look, like, that's my buddy. They dedicated their life to that. Like, and kind of went through this whole thing. And I think because I was a young cartoonist, they were kind of understanding of it. But I learned my lesson really quick that first convention. Like, when you're at a comic convention, when you're like blogging about comics, when you're talking about comics, like, realize it's a tiny industry. It doesn't mean you can't say you don't like something, but like, be careful, like, when it comes to saying things like so-and-so is such a bad creator, they don't deserve to live. Like, like stuff that goes way too far and goes personal. Like, realize, like, the editor you might be trying to get published by might be best friends with that person. Like, it's a really small community. And so, like, like, would I want to hire somebody who crap talked my best friend? No, and that happens a lot in comics in communities. And so I definitely recommend like kind of just assume when you're at a convention, like the person you're talking to might know the artists that you're about to talk crap about. Like that's a good thing to think when you go to a convention, because it's most likely true. Weirdly enough, if most people who convention 1 or 2 times, pretty much have met the same people. Because it's a small world.
I always say that a lot. I think about that a lot. I don't know if you guys do. Any of you guys watch Cartoonist Kayfabe?
What is it?
Cartoonist Kayfabe.
No.
It's Ed Piskor and Jim Rugg. They're comic book professionals. They're Eisner Award winners and stuff. They're pretty well established in indie comics. But they have this really awesome channel, and they'll review stuff. Like they started off with just going through Wizard magazine and just kind of going through it and commenting on kind of the state of comics at that point, where that was the Image thing and just everything going on. But it's weird like listening to them, because a lot of times they're in the industry, but a lot of times they'll rip on other people in the industry, and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. I'm sure you kind of might have run-ins with those people. They keep it real, but and then sometimes it's weird because sometimes they'll like look at a very like they'll be looking at like mini comics and just very raw, very sort of, you might say, amateurish, but they look at it and you could tell the love of comics when they're looking at the appreciation they have, even for somebody that may not be that well established, and they love that stuff. They could see the craft that's putting, even if it's not, that craft isn't honed to something that maybe like a professional level, but they totally compliment stuff. It's weird, like sometimes they'll compliment stuff that's a little not as professional as some of the people that are working professionally. Of course. Yeah, so it's kind of a weird thing, but I like them because they keep it real, but sometimes it's like, I couldn't do that, because what if I ran into that person at a convention that I just dished on for about 20 minutes. So
and you never know, because those people they might be talking about might have kind of made their own bed with that too, so maybe they're those people who are like notoriously jerks in the industry,
As a rule of thumb, I always just say negativity is repulsive and positivity is attractive. So if you want to attract opportunities to yourself, man, just be positive. If you're someone who likes to gossip, that's something you got to quit. Because like talking crap about anybody doesn't get you anywhere in life. It just destroys opportunities. I talked about this with Justin Gray on my podcast, man. Like he said, it's like almost like a hallway, and you can just hear all the doors closing. And it's true though, because I've seen artists on social media, they're posting some angry political thing, and it's like, not that you can't be political and have opinions, but be positive about it. Like, don't, you're tearing people down and spewing hate and malice instead of love and positivity. That's not someone I want to even interact with or like work with ever. So it's just stuff to keep in mind. And we have a culture where like celebrity gossip is okay, or anyone who's in the spotlight, it's okay to like tear them down. Even creators of television series or movies, directors, you see these like reviews online of some movie, and they're talking about, oh, this crew is a bunch of idiots, the director, what an idiot, what a moron, who wrote this script. It's like you can like there's plenty of film critics on YouTube who are positive. Like Chris Stuckman is one I follow, and he's like very professional in the way that he critiques films. And then there's other people who are just like talking crap about people they don't even know. And it's a small world. And like, I don't want to go on too long of a ramble, but like Josh was saying about, you never know who knows who. What I was going to say about celebrities, I know people who have met like celebrities through mutual friends. There was a friend of mine who, a friend of his went to high school with this really famous singer, and they wound up just hanging out with him. And can you imagine if like my friend had ever said something bad about that guy on Twitter or something? It's just like, and now you're face to face with this person you never thought you would meet. So it's a very, very small world, man. You never know who you're going to run into. So just be nice.
Yeah. But the weird thing is, and I'm noticing this, it's almost like YouTube and some of these social media platforms, they reward that kind of behavior. Like the videos that get the most views are like the negative ones.
Mhm.
And it's just like, and I try my best not to click on a lot of that stuff. Like anytime I see something just bashing on Star Wars, because I don't want to hate. I mean, Star Wars, you know, it's some of the new stuff I'm not that big of a fan of, but I mean, there's some stuff that I am a fan of, but I'm not, I just don't want to get in this whole thing where you're just hating on stuff to hate on it. Like movies like this is why this sucks, or this is why that, you know, it's just like, I want to be one of the few people that doesn't get
Well, it's clickbait. The Last Jedi is the worst movie ever.
And I noticed this with my own stuff, because every once in a while I'll have something that's kind of got a little bit of a negative spin, or I might like what I try to do is like something that sounds negative, but then I try to put a positive spin on. Like I just did a video on Etsy, and it was like WTF Etsy, because they've rolled out some new this kind of free shipping model that I'm not totally in agreement, but that was kind of draw people in, and then once I get them in, I'm trying to say, okay, so social media platforms and marketplaces, they change, and you have to. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to build your own platform. You need to, you know, start a website. You need to get a mailing list. So it was kind of like I use that to kind of people in, but I want to offer a solution. You know, I don't want to just complain, because, you know, this is going to continue to happen. Things are going to continue to change, and a lot of times it's out of your hands, and you can complain about it, or you can try to offer solutions. But, you know, whether it's that, or the one thing I will complain about is like things like Fiverr and things like that. So those videos, because they do have a little bit more of a negative thing, I try to be pretty positive on my you know, videos. But some of those ones that have a little bit of negative spin, they just do better. And it kind of sucks, because, you know, and that's the thing, if I wanted to like really grow my channel, I could just double down and that's all the content I put out, and I'd be doing a lot better, but I just don't want to. Like so I did the Etsy video, and then I'm like, well, I got to come back, but I want to do something positive. So it was just me talking about, just me doing a show and tell based on all these, you know, indie comics I got, and going through this bag of 20-year-old loot, like swag that I got from Comic-Con at like in the 90s. Just
right.
Like just fun. Of course, that video didn't get a whole lot of views, but I don't know. For me, I couldn't just continue to keep doing negative stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's important to keep in mind, you attract how you act as well. And I think, like, you guys, your audience, I'm a member, you know, so it seems to be a pretty positive, optimistic type of place, right? Full of good people.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen for instance, you know, online influencers or creators who have sort of a negative vibe to them. They always attract negativity in the comment section.
Oh yeah.
All the time, dude. Like, there's this one comedy podcast I listen to once in a while just because it's really funny, but they're negative and they hate on people and they say negative things, and you'll see in the comment section, like, sometimes they'll have a guest on and the audience will just be like hating and throwing shade at the guest, like, this is the worst guest ever. And the creators attracted those kind of people, and they also created the culture by being negative. By being negative, they were letting their audience know, hey, it's okay to be negative and be mean and nasty to people.
Yeah.
And so your people are like your mirror. Everything you do and say, people are looking to other people all the time for how should I act, how should I behave in the world. And we're all leaders in that sense. So how you act, you're going to see that reflected in your audience, I think.
Yeah, I do want to qualify with one thing, because, like, I will say, you know, I'm a huge fan of punk rock, and I'm in a band that writes kind of angry music, and I don't think any of us write stories that are squeaky clean and don't have possibly like an angry moment or a point of view that might be critical of culture. You know, it's just a matter of, like, just don't be a dick. Like that's the main thing. Just, you know, like you can talk about your, like for me, for instance, like on Facebook, I'm a little measured about how much I talk about politics because I'm on salary at a business, and so I'm considered a representative of that business. So I gotta be really careful about what I say. But at the same time, I'll make political posts if there's something that I think is like inappropriate that's going on. You know, I'll talk about it.
Mhm.
Now, how I conduct myself with people who might disagree, that's where it gets into like, you know, that's the thing. It's like when you're actually dealing with people and interacting with human beings, you need to realize you're interacting with human beings and you're dealing with people, and treat them with the same dignity and respect, you know, that you'd expect to be treated, you know?
Right.
So
you could
like,
learn to love anyone if you just knew their story.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had just seen the trailer for the Mr. Rogers biopic with Tom Hanks, and I was thinking to myself, and I'm a fan of Mr. Rogers, but I was thinking to myself, I wonder how that's going to do, because Mr. Rogers doesn't have any like negative. It's not like a lot of biopics are you're sold on, okay, this is the music artist you love, but we're going to go into how he was all on drugs and how, you know, he's abusive and all, or whatever, or all these bad things, and so there's not too many biopics out there of people that just actually led a good life and wanted to actually do something positive and things like that. And for a minute I was questioning, like, is this going to be interesting? Because
Where's the conflict?
yeah. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, no, I mean, we need stuff like this too. I mean, we need uplifting things, and
Yeah,
not enough of that.
100%.
So I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. So I mean, but your natural tendency is to go towards the drama and all that kind of stuff. So.
Well, Mr. Rogers, one of my heroes, dude. You know, he was from the Burgh too, from Pittsburgh, and he actually, like, there was a thing like after 9/11. I don't know if you saw the Mr. Rogers documentary. It's really good. But after
I saw it.
Yeah, he was like crushed. He was like, he felt like his life's work wasn't having any impact on the world. It's like, we'll never overcome evil. We'll never overcome, you know, so like he was, you know, he was human too. And there was certainly inner conflict there, but yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I totally forgot that you were in Pittsburgh. And before I had mentioned Cartoonist Kayfabe and Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor, and they're both in Pittsburgh too. And they have a love for Pittsburgh, so they're always kind of talking about it. So yeah, you should check them out.
I know. Who was the other one? I know. I've heard of Ed Piskor a lot. We have
so he does
the other one.
Hip Hop Family Tree, and Jim Rugg, who does Street Angel, among other things.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's a third guy that's Tom Sholey, who's on every once in a while too. He's doing they just announced. So Ed Piskor did X-Men Grand Design, which is kind of, if you've seen Hip Hop Family Tree, it's very much like a retelling in his style about the history of hip hop. Well, he did the same thing with X-Men, where it was from his retelling of the history of the X-Men in his kind of style, and very different from anything else you'll see in a Marvel or DC book. I mean, there's some people that kind of can break out of what people come to expect, that they've reached a certain thing that they can do that kind of thing. He's one of them. But this other guy, Tom Sholey, he's doing and he's very much inspired by Kirby, but he's doing the Fantastic Four Grand Design, which is kind of something similar. So anyway, but yeah, definitely check those guys out, especially Pittsburgh.
All right, so do we have more to this list? I'm loving the list.
Yeah,
I have another one. Yeah.
Right. I'm excited.
Yeah, another thing that will cause people to lose followers is bad social skills. So
yeah,
a lot of the times people come across as rude and they don't mean to. So it's really important you understand that, like, people don't know you when you meet them at a convention or when they interact with you online for the first time. And first impressions, you know, they're looking at every little thing you do to get an impression of who you are. So for instance, there's this thing called the urban scowl, which is basically like you're just not smiling. And how many people do you know that just don't smile? It doesn't mean they're in a bad mood, but it's, can I swear on the show actually?
Yeah.
Resting bitch face is what people call it, right?
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean someone is a bitch or they're mean. It simply means that they're just not smiling, but it can be misinterpreted. So when in doubt, smile. All kinds of things like that. There's a whole bunch of things like with body language, things we could get into. So
yeah, and sometimes it has to be, you kind of have to sometimes give the person the benefit of the doubt, because sometimes people have just kind of quirky sense of humor, and maybe you don't get that sense of humor, but sometimes it's made in jest, or sometimes there's no vitriol behind it or anything like that. So sometimes you kind of have to get a feel for a person before you totally make up your decision on, are they just being a jerk or not. So
I definitely agree. I always give people the benefit of the doubt, and because I feel like I've come across the wrong way many a times with people. But you have to understand, most people won't give you the benefit of the doubt. So hone your social skills and learn how to treat people well, and how to make people feel good. That's probably the most important thing, is like when you interact with other people, just focus on making them feel good, and usually that's a good thing to focus on.
Yeah, I think those are good tips. Like another thing too is like become aware of your social tics. So like when like having to lead like other designers and illustrators and stuff, one of the biggest challenges of like managing a group of people when there's like money on the line is communication and miscommunication. And so like usually right off the bat, like if I have a new employee or if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, like in a social setting where it's like other artists or fans, I'll just kind of tell them, like, I have a tendency to like interrupt people. I apologize. It's in my nature. I'm working on it, but I tend to interrupt people. I'll tell them, I have a tendency to ramble, and I'm really big on being clear with people, and so I'll have a tendency to over-explain, and that can come across as pretension. So I'll just get it out of the way, because at the end of the day, like, those are things I'm working on, but I know those faults of my own, and by owning those faults, like and those faults being owned only come from self-awareness in social situations where you're like, oh wow, I do that a lot. And so like, at least if you're aware of it, you can own it. And it's amazing how forgiving people are of social quirks when you just own them. I think it's generally when you don't that you end up in deep water. Like if somebody's kind of coming across really pretentious and they don't go, I kind of sounded pretentious there, I'm sorry. Like that's where it's like you get into deep water, because then you really are just kind of being pretentious. And it's so it's like this fine line, because we all have tics, but I think like that's part of empathy is a little bit of self-analysis from like an objective standpoint, where you just kind of step outside of yourself and go, what do I do that drives people crazy? Like the people who know me the best, what's the thing I do that drives them nuts? Mm-hmm. Like that's the thing to be aware of and work on, and then also let people know, because like we all have those things, Or if you have a dark sense of humor, like just early in the conversation, say I have a dark sense of humor. Comedy is, like you were saying, you listen to a comedy podcast. That's a really good example of something where being socially tactful might actually be a real bad thing for your art, because when you're doing that art, you have to be a little outrageous. You have to kind of find that line and kind of dance on it. And, that's a huge part of humor, going back to like the Decameron, like, so it's like, that's one of those art forms where it's like, you might have to piss people off to do your job. But in those situations, if you're interacting with a fan and you're a person who likes to crack jokes a lot, like if you're aware of that from the get-go, you can make them feel more comfortable, So, because like, once again, like it's a fine line, even a bad off-color joke, it crosses a line when people are uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And like, that's kind of, I don't know. So, yeah.
No, yeah.
That's really good advice that you kind of you've kind of identified some things that people may, you know, misconstrue and let people know right off the bat. I think that's really good, because it shows that, you know, it's not intentional. It's just, you know, that's kind of the way I am, and I'm working on it. So as soon as that happens, people are immediately, it's almost like with humor, like I listen to a lot of, I listen to the Fat Man on Batman podcast with or now it's changed, something called something else, Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith, and he's very self-effacing, where you kind of, you know, what is that where you kind of,
yeah,
you know, basically bring all the negative stuff on yourself or whatever. So he's very much like that. So it's almost, you can't, I mean, the guy's heard every kind of criticism about him there is, but he just kind of goes with it, and he says, yeah, that's, you know, it's half the stuff I make is crap or whatever. And so how do you criticize a person like that when they're admitting it? Because it's like the thing people want to do when they insult you is get you down. But if you're sitting there agreeing with them, I mean, it's no fun anymore. So it's
a good example of that too is like Rob Liefeld, right? Like Rob Liefeld notoriously draws, like, you know, or drew figures where he hid the legs, and he'd add like a billion pouches, and people made fun of him for it. And yet, and I was one of those people. And yet, I remember when I discovered his Twitter account, and he would post something like, hey, I'm working on this cover, and it's like the pouch. And the parody, it's just a character that's a pouch, just making fun of the fact, like, he's poking a little fun at himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I also saw like this YouTube video where like a YouTuber was like, I'm going to confront Rob Liefeld. And like, he kind of was trying to like piss off Rob Liefeld at a convention, asking him to like draw a character and then just asking him to add pouches over and over again. And Liefeld just kept adding pouches, and he's like, yeah, that's kind of funny because I do draw a lot of pouches. And I like instantly, I am actually kind of a fan of Rob Liefeld just because of the fact that he kind of Shatnered it. You know, like William Shatner did the same thing. He just embraced the fact that he was known for overacting and was just like, you know what, that I'm gonna make like free verse poetry albums because people like this, and I'm going to go really far with it, you know. So there's that too, like just having, I guess maybe that ties into something else, maybe that's on your list, but just having a sense of humor goes a really long way. But the thing about directly communicating like your own flaws or whatever, just direct communication's good, you know. I mean, it's how I got my wife. It's like I remember having this frustration for a lot of my life where I'd ask a girl to dinner and she wouldn't realize it was a date. And then we'd end up on a date, and I'd be like, we're on a date. And they'd be like, this isn't a date. We're just friends kind of thing.
Oh, no.
And so like, by the time I had gotten to the point of like asking my wife, like when I first, like, you know, we were in art school together and stuff. And when I decided to ask her out, I was just like, I'm just going to be direct, like straight up. So I was like, I want to take you on a date, not a friend date, like a legit date. Because I'm interested in more than friendship. So would you be interested in that? And like laying it all out on the table is, I don't know, I'm a big fan of that, because I think and keep in mind, I think that's a good life advice, but especially dealing with fans, because people can smell bullshit. Like they can smell bullshit from a mile away. You know,
well, it's what you're talking about. There's just communication is just everything, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and people, like I was saying, people don't know you. Like, there was a girl I met. She's a pretty well-known comic writer, and I met her at a convention, and she was working on a script at her table, and so she wasn't smiling. She had her head down, like working on her script. She looked all stressed out. And so, like, to me, it came across as like, okay, she's just not really interested in talking to me right now. And I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Like, yeah, she was obviously stressed out. She got all these deadlines. But, like, I could see how someone else in that situation could have easily said, like, wow, she was really rude, right? Because she wasn't looking me in the eye. She seemed very disinterested in talking to me. So it's all these little things you have to keep in mind. And a great book, there's a couple good books. Josh, I know you know How to Win Friends and Influence People. Get that book. and read it like 10 times. But there's another one that's called The Like Switch, and it's all about body language and how to make yourself more likable and like present yourself in a way that shows people, hey, I'm a cool person. And I know there's one person listening right now who's like, but I'm an introvert, Dan. Guess what? I used to be an introvert too. You can hone social skills just like you can hone your drawing skills. You can hone your social skills. You can become more extroverted and not give up who you are as a person. These are things you just have to learn.
An introvert. I would say I still am an introvert, and some people might say, they see YouTube and everything, and me kind of being all silly and stuff like that, and they don't think of it. But but I had to all that stuff. Go back to my first videos, and you'll see there's definite change. It's all you just have to start step by step, and you'll get better at it. But it's tough. I remember just when I was first starting off my art career, having to make cold calls. Oh, I absolutely hated that. But back then that's what you had to do. You had to do. And I got this little like plunger speaker thing to put on the phone so that I could record the conversation. So when some people read their name, that I had the pronunciation right and I could remember it, and just all this stuff because I knew, and plus, writing the names down, I didn't want to get anyone's name wrong or anything. So I did all these different steps, and it was just a whole thing, and setting up, trying to get the tape recorder to work so I could write my notes down afterwards and all this stuff, and just the nervousness of doing that. But I did it, and, and because of that, I was able to start getting clients that way. But, sometimes you definitely got to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, just take it one step at a time. That's all I can say. But
Yeah, and if you're an introvert, also realize you're joining the club. Like most people who spent a lot of their youth like drawing stuff all day were necessarily, like, whether it was out of preference or just a desire to get better as artists, putting off some kind of social situation for that. And often I think as kids we're doing that as their like pacifier for social situations. So like realize like when you're with artists and you're looking at artists, there's rarely artists who started as extroverts, so like most of them had to do that hard work,
Good stuff, guys.
Yeah. And what else is on your list? Anything?
We pretty much covered most of it. There's like a couple more things. There's just things like inconsistency is a big one. Like, I think if you're not being consistent with what you're posting or promoting online, that's been a thing that's kind of it can kind of confuse people, and they're like, I don't get what this person's about. And I've kind of done this in the past. So if you just like focus on like one thing that you want people to know about, it's pretty helpful, I feel.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, people should know you for something. Like, people know Josh for quarterly stories. They know Scott for his illustration and his comics and everything. I don't see Scott like pulling out his guitar on his YouTube channel ever. Do you have a guitar? I don't know.
I have zero musical talent at all. I wish I did, but I know.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I always say. If I wasn't doing like art or comics, I don't know what I'd be doing because I'm not good at anything else.
Yeah.
So
there was one more. I forgot what it was. Oh, asking too much and giving too little. So every piece of content you put online should either entertain, educate, or inspire. I'm sure you guys know that, obviously, but to anyone listening, everything you post on Instagram, every video, if you're doing videos or podcasting, anything it is, focus on providing value for people, and then ask them to back your Kickstarter. Like, back my Kickstarter, guys.
Yeah.
But because there's so many people who are just like go on like a Facebook group for artists, and all you're gonna see is back my Kickstarter, back my Kickstarter, back my Kickstarter. Like, I never do that because it's just like nobody cares, man.
Yeah.
But if you focus instead on like what you guys do with Artcasters, like I support you guys because you guys have given me value before, not just through friendship, but through the content you put out. It's like, I feel obligated to say thank you in some way and support you guys,
Yeah, you gotta you gotta give, and then take. You know, it's kind of like what is it? Gary Vaynerchuk? Is it jab, 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 right hook? Where it's basically you give, and then you have an ask. You know, but you have to definitely outweigh the giving, because otherwise it just, you know. And there's certain things you can do, you know, to promote yourself that isn't as it doesn't sound as like carnival barky or like as spammy. You know, obviously one of the things we do is that we kind of make a joke out of it. Like anytime I'm talking about the comic starter kit, Josh will go, and how much is that? And, you know, so it becomes a running gag. So at least there's some humor in it. The other thing you can do is like one thing that I'm going to be doing, just a little kind of behind the scenes, I'm working on another, you know, digital product for making comics and everything. And I'm also going to be doing a series of videos from, you know, basically how to make comics from start to finish. And, you know, in order to kind of market this digital pack that I'm using, I'm going to be using, or actually I'll probably be just promoting more of the free version just to get people to sign up to my mailing list and stuff. But I'll be using a lot of the stuff in that kit as I do the demonstration. So it's like, okay, here's a kit that's free. Let's do a layout, just download the template here, and then you've got it. And then so I get people to go to the website and everything, but I'm also providing, you know, a service. It's almost like a workbook that goes along with the course in a way. So It's a way to get you involved in the website and everything. So there's ways you can kind of promote yourself without kind of being too spammy. Like a lot of times, you know, sometimes you watch a video and the whole theme of the video can kind of sort of tie into a product that they have, and they can do it in such a way where it doesn't sound like it's just tacked on or spammy or anything, because it actually has to do with the topic. So, but yeah.
Oh,
go ahead. No, you got it, bro.
Okay. I was just gonna say, just tagging on to what I was saying earlier, it's like people can smell bullshit, and so like, what is going on to a group and just saying back my Kickstarter? That's kind of a bullshit post. And so it's like that's the thing. People can usually smell that a mile away, and people can smell desperation. So it's like, you know, trying to be that's a hard thing to navigate, because as artists, we are desperate to have people back our Kickstarters. We do want our stuff to get out there. We want people to pay for our stuff. So there is a little bit of desperation there, like for anybody. And so it's this hard thing of like kind of trying to find the joy in the situation, like trying to find the joy in promoting your work. Like if you're engaged with people, then they will reciprocate with engagement, you know?
Yeah.
If you're just kind of showing up like at a party, handing out business cards and leaving, nobody at that party is going to keep that card because you didn't join the party, you know? So it's like, just because it's the internet doesn't mean social skills go out the window. You know, it's like you kind of have to engage with everybody at the party. You don't necessarily even hand your card, you know? Like it's kind of more of like a go there to enjoy the people, and then as a byproduct, like promote your stuff, you know?
Yeah. And I would also say like helping people is a huge thing, dude. Like
100%.
I was just like, there's people who I've been hitting up like, hey, if you're interested, I have a Kickstarter going on, and I have zero shame about it because I've referred that person for jobs before, or I've like put them in touch with people that could help them with their career goals. You know what I mean? It's like, so if you're constantly in the practice of like making friends with people, and always look for ways to help people, like figure out what are their goals, and is there anyone in your network you could put them in touch with? I'm always doing stuff like that. Or can you shout people out, you know, not with the expectation of getting anything in return, but just like be a cool person. And, you know, you have no, like you're adding value, and when you add value, there's no shame in asking to be compensated for it. So.
Yeah. People like spending money, you know, on stuff and with two people that enjoy that interaction. People like hiring people they like. Like, it's just, it's kind of one of those things. Like, we all like supporting people we like. And so, there's some creators that I personally just do not like as human beings, like, and yet their work is so brilliant. I hate supporting them, but I'll still do it because it's just that good. That I'm like, okay, I'll give you my money, but I hate that you're this good because you're kind of a jerk.
Hey, thank you for supporting me, Josh. No.
Yeah, of course. Dan being the first and foremost of that. No, but like when somebody's like Dan, or Scott, it's like hard not to support them because they're such good people, and then they make good stuff, which is like, okay, so you really want this person to succeed, So that, to me, that's the line I draw. But it is hard, and I've been there where like I, even going into when I finished this book, I've thought about tactics to like promote and stuff and to do a Kickstarter, and it is hard to like think, how do you avoid being the person who's just like spammy, So yeah.
I mean, what I do is like I use my email newsletter a lot, and sometimes I'll like copy and paste my email newsletter into an Instagram post, and my format is always add some sort of value, even if it's just like an inspirational quote that I cut and paste.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I'll be like, by the way, I have a Kickstarter going on, link in bio. So like my percentage of like give to ask is like 90-10. So I'm like giving all this stuff, like encouraging people, like saying, don't give up. And then at the end, I'm like, by the way, back my Kickstarter. And yeah, it's so like, again, man, just add value. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. So anything else on your list, or are we ready to start wrapping things up?
I mean, I think we pretty much covered all I can think of. I mean, I know there's a lot more, and I would just say, if to you listening at home, if you've done any of these things, there's no shame. Like, it's okay. Like, we've all made mistakes. We've all said stupid things. Like Josh was saying about, talking bad about somebody in the industry or something. Like, we've all made these kind of mistakes, so it's totally okay. It's just, you want to start to become aware of them and stop doing certain things. So
yeah. Well said.
All right, so let's see. So yeah, let's kind of, I guess, close out the final Google Hangout version of Artcasters, unless Google decides, we're not going to stop it anyway. But every time I go live, I get that little notification that it's going to end August 1st. So anyway.
Drum roll. So, and then I realized that probably doesn't translate well over Google Hangouts. So maybe the next one can do drum rolls.
Yeah. So hopefully, we'll see. Hopefully we'll be back next week. But yeah. So Josh, anything you got going on? Anything you want to promote? Anything like that?
Yeah. But before I get into promoting stuff, just want to reiterate, like, just treat people like you'd like to be treated. It's an old rule, but like, if you follow that, it's going to be hard to go wrong when it comes to just dealing with human beings. But with my comics, you can check out my story about faith and mental illness that I handwrite, hand letter, and hand ink, and hopefully hand to you someday in print. Tell that it's available online at quarterlystories.com, and also for your Android or iOS device, you can just search for Quarterly Stories on topis.io, and that's like a really easy way to read it on your iPhone or your iPad or whatever. And I should be updating that more frequently. I'm going to try to update that tomorrow for this week's update, but it does update weekly. And then just check out my illustrations at joshuakemble.com, and then go support Dan's Kickstarter. I mean, this guy's like kicking out a lot of comics, and the last thing we want to do is disincentivize a good creator from putting out content. So let's give some money to back, like, the creation of this stuff, so we can all keep making this stuff. So Dan's definitely like, the quality is good, the writing's good, and like, as you've seen on the show, he's a good dude. So go support him.
I've already backed it, so follow my lead and go back Dan's Kickstarter. There is a link in the description. So other than that, what else you got going on, Dan? What else you want to promote? Or is that, I'm sure that's probably pretty much it, but you can also just let people know what's going on before we sign off.
I will definitely give glowing recommendations for Quarterly Stories. Almost made me cry. It's just really good. And then Scott's comic, Young and the Dead, is sweet. If you're on a Stranger Things 3 hangover, if you need some more fun Spielbergian adventure, go read Scott's comic as well. So
thanks. But before you do that, definitely back Dan's Kickstarter, because my comic will be there for a while. It'll be there after the Kickstarter's over. So first back Dan's Kickstarter.
And thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to thank everyone in the chat too. We didn't get to many of the comments and everything, but we do appreciate everyone in the chat. And like I said, so this is last Go Hangouts version. So we're working on a solution to move forward, and hopefully we'll be back next week. But if for some reason we can't get it, but we will be back eventually. We just got to figure all this stuff out. But if you want to know when we're going to be back, or what time, or what day, all that kind of stuff, the best way to figure that out is by joining our mailing list, the Artcasters mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. Just join the mailing list, and we don't spam you or anything like that. Just about 30 minutes before we go live, we send out a little newsletter with the link, so you know where we're going to be, because this thing switches back and forth from Josh's channel to my channel. Sometimes it's on Thursdays, can be on Wednesday. You never know. So the way to know exactly when we're going to go live is to just jump on that newsletter. So I think that's it. I'm Scott at Serkworks. You're following me on YouTube, so you know where the YouTube channel is. I'm also got some stuff at serkworks.com. And so that's gonna do it for this week, and we'll be back a little different format, hopefully next week. Thanks again, everyone.
We love you.